oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her last name.
Adrienne Marie Brown?
Adrienne Marie Brown says, thank you. And and then we're going to look, so we're going to look at spectrum of allies and opponents, and then we're going to look at points of intervention and look at some key very specific actions that Dragonfly and I have both been part of, and also ones that we know about from all over the world. So you can look at some concrete examples. Then we're going to have a quick little break, little bio break, and then we're going to come back to breakouts again, where you're going to get in your group and have a longer session to do some brainstorming and looking at different campaigns that you actually won't have a choice for to choose, unfortunately or fortunately, but look at it as a challenge. And you'll see in those groups, and these groups will be with folks from all different colleges together. So you won't be just with people that you already know, you'll get different perspectives. And you'll be looking at different campaigns. And these are from what Dragonfly and I looked at, from what you wrote in your initial responses about things that were interesting to you. So we tried to get some issues that we saw you care about and uplifted. And then we're going to go into debrief and come back and talk about it. And we're going to do a closing exercise. One thing I want to add too is that we are recording this, but if it gets used, right, we're going to ask permission, or how does that work, Ariel?
Oh, well, we will not be sharing this, so for everyone's privacy. It's for our own internal purposes, but thank you for asking.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And I'm going to pass it back to Dragonfly. Next slide, please.
All righty. I forgot to give my pronouns, my apologies, but that's probably because my policy is I accept any pronouns that are said with love and respect. Boom. So, and with that, I think it's interesting that today also happens to be National Pet Day and National Sibling Day. And I like how that fits into the land acknowledgement that I'm encouraging everyone to invoke right now with the Native Indigenous American philosophy of looking at everything beyond our species as our family and our siblings, and to remember that the work that we're doing is not just for the human species. It is basically for all life on Earth. So as we eliminate all of the isms in our life, speciesism, I think, should be included. Now, there's an amazing project. You see the link there where you can text. Either way, you go there and you put in either your zip code or your city and state, separated by a comma, and the bot will tell you on whose land you are presently occupying. So when you do your introductions in your breakout groups, it would be great if you could also include the land acknowledgement. All righty. So, and then since we do have video, Monica, would you like to do the body movement exercise? Does that happen now? I can't.
No, first it's intros in the chat, and then the spectrogram, and then back to.
Boom. All right. So for now, for the purposes of everybody getting to know everybody, if you can just real quick go ahead and drop into the chat your name, your institution, your city, your pronouns. Unfortunately, because of the size of the group, we don't have time for everyone to give the personal introduction. But again, we're all a community, so let's get to know each other. And also, while that is happening, Ariel, can we go to the next slide, please? Also, as a part of us getting to know each other as expediently as possible, we're going to do something that's called the spectrogram. Now, what you'll see is all those nice little graphics on the bottom. I call them digital glitter. What you're going to do is take one of those little pieces of glitter, and you're going to place yourself where you fall on the spectrogram in terms of your experience and comfort level with doing actions. So as you can see, all the way on the orange end is when you're new to this, maybe you've never done an action, or maybe you've just shown up to one. Maybe you've done something that's a little bit more passive, like documented it, but once again, weren't involved in the planning and whatnot. All the way on the other end of the spectrum is where this is you. This is what you do. You've led them, you've planned them, you've also helped facilitated teaching, and you're pretty much the go-to person. And of course, if you fall somewhere in between. So Ariel, how are we going to make it so that everyone has access to the spectrogram? Does everyone have access to this document yet?
I think we can just drop it into the chat if someone has it. Here you go. Monica's just dropped it in right now. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. That is slide number 7. So if you go to slide number 7, is that right, Ariel? Is that slide number 7?
Mame has it up. Mame, is it 7?
Yeah. No, go back, please. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go back to that spectrogram. Yeah. It's number 7. Yes. Awesome. For everyone, go to the link in the chat, open up the Google Doc, go to slide number 7, and place yourself on the spectrogram. I'm going to start because I am clearly one of the trainers and leaders. So there is mine. Could you send the link again? Yes, we can. And unfortunately, because of the way that Google Documents works, we won't be able to see in this presentation in real time where everyone has placed themselves, but we may be able to double back and show at the end. Oh, I see things happening. I see it on my end. You can't see it on the screen, but you can probably see it in your own. It's so cute. It looks like little glitter constellations moving. Yay! And just so you know, Monica and I both pretty much come from a philosophy that doing this work, and yes, it is work, but you've got to bring joy into the movement. You've got to bring, as Miss Justice Jester says, love and light and laughter and levity, because we are dealing with a lot of really serious stuff. Oppression is not fun. But if you think about it, the spirit of joy and play is the antithesis of oppression. That's why going out into the streets with puppets and things like that really freaks out the powers that be. They just don't know what to do with that. Look at all the glitter. I see it. It's so great. So you can probably see it on your own computer, but unfortunately not on the screen right now, because once it's in presentation mode, it's pretty much frozen. Ah, look at all the glitter. Oh, and one more thing, because today is National Pet Day, please do not be surprised if my cat Keisha makes a cameo appearance. She heard me call her name. There's a cattail. Yep, there she is. We're doing this for her too. All right. All right, so moving on. Now I'm going to pass the ball to Monica.
Thank you, Dragonfly, for that wonderful exercise. There's so much experience in the room, which is great. It's hard, especially in these Zoom trainings, to be able to hear from everyone. And we're going to try and hear from as many people as possible, which is great that you'll have space in your breakout rooms to do that, because we understand and appreciate that there's so much wisdom in this room, the Zoom room already. So I invite you now, at whatever accessible point you have to this, to take an opportunity, because we're going to be sitting for a while. We're going to take in a lot. So we want you to get in your body. So you can do this seated, you can do this standing, whatever way is accessible for you right now. So I invite you to join. And if we can show everyone now, stop sharing the screen just for a moment and have videos available so we can see each other. If you don't mind going on video, oh, you're so brave. Thanks. Okay, so if you'd like to participate in this, if you don't want to, no worries, at your level, at your desire. So just take a moment and reclaim yourself from Zoom. You can listen to me, but look away from the computer for a moment. Stretch, move around, just find a moment to reclaim your body from the computer, from Google, from Zoom, from everything. Just find what feels good and move around, breathing, shaking it out, stretching, anything you like, anything you need. Good. And then when you're ready, come back to the screen, find your way back. And I want you to think about how you normally find yourself in your activism. Maybe that's in social media, maybe you're documenting, maybe you're on the megaphone a lot, maybe you're locking down, maybe you're climbing, maybe you're holding a banner, maybe you're making phone calls, phone banking, whatever it is, a point of how you express your own activism in your life. What does that physically look like? And I want you to find it when I count to 3, to just find that physical pose like a statue and just hold it on 3. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go for it. See lots of computers, lots of phones. I see some strength. I see some like raising the roof. I see Dragonfly's got her tambourine. All right, cool. And then let that go. Shake it out. And now I want you to think about how you would like to find yourself more in activism. Maybe it's something new that you haven't been able to do. Maybe you would like to speak out more. Maybe you'd like to take, be the person who brings the coffee to people who are locking down. Maybe you want to make more art, whatever it is, or if it's the same thing you did before and you want to do more of that, that's great too. Okay, so think about what that is. And on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go for it. Oh, I see a lot more physical movement. I wonder if I can see the next page because I'm only seeing these folks. Okay, oh, those folks are not on video. I hope you're doing it some way. I see the hands up in the air. I see lots of strength. I see like openness. I see some locking down. I see support. I see prayer. I see drawing or writing. Fantastic. Okay, good. Now I know you a little bit more who's in the room. Thanks all so much. Okay, shake it out. And whenever you're ready, we can come back to the slides. Thank you, Mame. You can come back to sharing the screen. Just wanted to make sure we had a little bit of time. Thank you. Okay, so we're already ready for our first breakout room. So when you're in your breakout group, and you're going to be with the same breakout group each time, and luckily we don't have as many people as we thought we were going to have, 100, so you'll be able to speak. We want to make sure that each person gets to have their voice heard in the room, so make sure you take note of that and self-facilitate. And what you're going to do in these breakout rooms within 12 minutes is you're going to introduce yourselves with a speed round. So name, pronoun, the college and city that you're from, and then and the land acknowledgement if you know that as well, what indigenous land you're on. And then share examples and just have a discussion about what are some of the best and worst actions that are from your own experiences that you've been part of, or that you know from ancient history throughout time of ones, and especially don't just go for ones that were successful. It's great to really learn from ones that not necessarily failed, but they weren't effective. And we've all had those happen, right? That's how you learn. And this is extremely difficult work. So it's bound to happen, and we learn and we get better. We're up against huge forces that have tons of money. So with these groups, you're going to share what was the campaign or the issue in that group, what was the goal, or there might be several goals, what was the tactic they used. And by tactic, I mean, like, was it a die-in, was it a blockade, was it singing, was it street theater, was it a trek, was it a hunger strike? So many things of tactics. And then why was it ineffective? Was it ineffective or effective? Why do you think? And then choose one, come up with a bunch and choose one to present. And in your group, you're going to have your own slide, and it's in this slideshow. So if you go back, you'll see what number you are, and there are 10 slides right after this. So you can write it right into that slide in this presentation, so you have access to it. You can drag and drop photos in there too, and write things and take notes, and then be ready to share back with the bigger group, to have one person to present for the group and use the slides. Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense? Have fun with it. Share a lot, talk a lot, hear from each other. Okay.
Great. So I'm going to open up the rooms. And if you, once you have, since we'll be in the same breakout room throughout, if you could rename yourself so that your room number is before your name. So for example, if I'm in breakout room 1, it'd be 1,1-Ariel. That would be great. And I will open up the rooms now. Anything else from the trainers?
Just each room has a faculty or staff person, and we're asking them to hold back and let the students be the leaders, the participants, and the talkers. So we're there for our fun, but not to run the groups.
Thank you for that. Yes, that is important. Let the youth lead. Okay, I saw someone had a question for how do you rename. So if you go to your name in your little box, it has 2 dots. It has 3 dots, and then you can go to that and see rename. Yeah, and someone put it in the chat too. Okay, so we're gonna break out unless there's any questions about that. Remember, you're gonna be able to present at least one action at the end throughout history that one person will present that you think was either effective or ineffective.
And very important, just so that you know that because of the interest of time, we wanted to make sure that we hear from everyone, but it has to be as succinct as possible. This is a really exciting and important part of our learning and sharing process, but keep it brief, no pressure.
Do you want to tell people again how to get into their groups?
I haven't turned it on, but I will now, and you should see an invitation shortly.
Okay.
Thanks, Ariel.
Sure.
Oh, we're going into groups too, Ariel?
You should have been assigned one, but you don't have to. I think it automatically, because I had had to just redo the groups because there was so much fall off. I just automatically did it, but you should be able as hosts to be able to move in between the groups if you want to.
Someone is editing slide number 9, and that's weird. Oh, okay.
Which one?
Is there a way to lock certain slides? Because that's odd. Okay, they left. I think they figured it out. I put 0 in front of my name since we're facilitators, so. Oh my God, Keisha, really? Wow, okay. I just got scratched and bitten, so I definitely have to play with her, like, immediately after this. Oh my God.
I don't see anyone in breakout 2 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Interesting. Okay, so should we message them? Yeah.
In the chat, you should be able to group all message. You should, if you go to breakout rooms, it should give you the option to join one. Does it give you guys the option?
Well, they might still be just doing introductions.
Right, that's true.
Okay, so I won't give them a message yet.
I would think at least one of them is going to know in the group to remember.
I would hope, yeah.
How are we doing on time now?
Oh, also, Ariel, I sent you a link to John Legend and the Roots, Wake Up Everybody, for our break, and the song is 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
Oh, I love it. Okay, great.
Doesn't that seem like it's like very appropriate?
Yeah, it's definitely a good vibe. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're perfectly on time.
Ah, yay!
That's exciting.
Yes.
Did
And you
you
can
keep
just,
track of when they broke out to give them time, Ariel? Because they had 12 minutes, and I guess that was about 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm frantically writing down everybody's name because
Oh,
we had to redo the groups and not everybody's
Oh.
renaming themselves, but 2 minutes does sound right. And I think you all, if you go to your chat, one of the options is to broadcast a message to all the breakout
Okay.
rooms rather. So it looks like you,
I just sent one. You can just directly from chat, right? Where it says everyone.
I'm wondering if that's only to everybody in the, oh, Carson.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
So
Let me,
my group and I were confused on what exactly the action events are. Are they events we do on campus or?
like a protest or an
Okay.
action throughout history. Like
Okay.
it could be the lunch counter sit-ins, or it could be Occupy Wall Street, or it could be anything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
Thank
I
you.
thought, wait, is this one's not about personal experiences?
It can be either,
Okay,
because not everyone has been in a protest or action.
got it.
Okay. Thank you. I will go back.
Thank you
Okay.
for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
oh, great.
Yeah.
I had no idea you could do that. You could go in and out. That's so cool. Okay.
I didn't know that either, but now I know.
So I'm going to broadcast. Actually, I just realized, Dragonfly, your message in the chat goes to just us because we're
Mhm.
everyone in your room.
I
Okay.
just did broadcast message
Oh,
to
I see it now. Okay, great.
and so I guess we should make sure we know when we got 5 minutes left, which will
We also clarify about that it's a protest. Was that not clear? An action?
Maybe, yeah, but do you want to just put that clarification in the chat or broadcast that to everybody just in
Okay.
case? I think some people who are new to campaigns might not, might need a little more.
What do we say?
Context.
Clarification. This is about actions and protests that either you've personally participated. It's hard to type when this is elevated. Or witnessed.
Or have learned about in history.
Okay, witnessed or learned about through history. Okay. Copy, broadcast. Okay, cool.
Okay, they're starting to, some of them are starting to.
Mm-hmm.
use it. Or are we group 6?
I don't think so, because I was assigned to room 10.
You in there, Dragonfly.
Hmm?
I see you in group 6.
Really?
Oh no, wait, you're just looking at the slide, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is always so fun. Once the adrenaline gets going.
Yeah, the show is on, and it really is a performance, huh?
It is. It is.
Especially through Zoom, you've got to make, I'm sure, all of the emotions that much more emotive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. They're all in the breakouts now.
Oh, they're filling in the slides?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
Well, at least they're looking at them. They aren't necessarily filling them out. They have them.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm getting myself geared up for the spectrum of allies.
And this is the one that you wanted some time help with, right, Dragonfly?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do have my timer, but you know, I might also get lost in the sauce. So
Do the quick strategy slide first, Dragonfly. After we debrief from them.
oh yeah, I see that. Mm-hmm. You know, I've only had coffee. Excuse me, bio break.
It's so weird to not be able to be around and like go around to tables. Like I don't want to jump in video because it feels intrusive and weird.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like you could join in, but then everybody sort of stops or something, you know? Although I guess in person you are sort of also leering, so pick your poison. But
At
yeah,
least
I can't.
soft approach.
Yeah. Are you vaccinated yet? Do you think that might be a in-person things in the future?
I have half. I'm getting the second one next week.
Me too.
Yeah, I will be relieved. Okay, they have 3 minutes now.
Okay.
Well, 3 minutes, and they have very little written down.
Should we give them some messages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell them if they haven't written anything in. Oh, they're doing it. Were all the groups? How many breakout groups are there? Are there 10?
There are 10.
Oh wow! Even though there's only.
Yeah, and each one actually it's kind of perfect. Each one has like between 5 and 6, 7, so it's like a really good amount.
So we can only hear a minute back from each person group for this. Is that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna send them a message.
Thank you.
Okay, 3 minutes left. Please complete your slides. You have a minute to present. That pretty much covers it. I think I'm gonna go to the park and put Keisha on a leash today.
It's so beautiful outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does she like being on a leash?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay. You better find out for your road trip.
Exactly. I mean, I did it once when she was much younger, but you know, even if she doesn't like it, she got to get used to it.
That's right. Okay, almost done writing down everybody's name. How much time do we have left?
Oh, I wasn't keeping up. It
looks like 1:37. So I think we had said about 5-minute warning at 1:35, which I think you gave. So.
Well, I just gave the 3-minute warning.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Great.
Mm-hmm. So they'll be back at 1:40, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, it should be in 1 minute. It should be
Oh,
now.
1 minute. All right. So let me just give a countdown to them then.
Cool.
Let me see. Let me just finish writing down their names and I'll put a countdown. Okay. All right, I think I'm gonna close them now, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, one group's putting photos in.
Ooh. Well, that's exciting.
So Dragonfly, you're gonna lead this debrief, right?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. That's neat. Okay, and we're going to give everyone exactly a minute.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Hope you made some new friends.
Yeah,
throughout the
okay.
archive.
All right, so I'm going to lead and facilitate our report backs. I am going to use a timer because we do again have to stay strict with that, and so that you don't get mad at me, you can get mad at my Android if you get cut off. All right, so and also we will feature the slide so that because some of y'all went audio video. All right, cool. All right, are we ready? Group one? Who's group one?
Yes,
mean,
I am
let's-
ready.
Yes.
Let's go back to the sharing the screen. If Mame, you can share the screen and make sure each person that you say why it was ineffective or effective. That's the most important thing to get. We'll look at your slide presentations.
Okay. All right. As soon as you start talking, I'll start the timer.
All right. So for my group, I think that we had a very nice conversation.
Sorry, let's go to your slides. So Mame, can you go to the breakout group 1 slide, please?
Yeah, I think you can just move it forward one and then we'll be on the correct slide.
There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, so we started off by talking about the civil rights movement and how it didn't exactly solve the issues, what was done, but we know a lot about the tactics that were used, like sit-ins particularly. That's a huge one that we know about. So we think that that was a really good one, and the fact that it is quite a long time later, and we still know about that. And then we also talked about a bike ride event that a lot of people actually got behind and really supported that. And I think that's very big because it's very easy to see and like in the community, very grounded in the community. And then on the other side of things that didn't work as well for the time being was that there was this the other thing is the Stonewall Uprising, and that has a lot of violence to it. But yeah, it's also a lot of intersectional stuff.
I hate to do that. Sorry. But we have the slides to refer to later. And thank you for illuminating those points. We're going to save our commentary until the end of all of the presentation. So moving on to slide 2, group 2. Yes. Okay. And is the spokesperson ready?
Yes.
Okay. How do you say your name? Was it?
Siani.
Siani. All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. So we basically were talking about like some effective forms of action, which was like digital fundraising for Black Lives Matter, and then also having people on college campuses like helping people to get registered for voting events. And then there was also other ones that like, you know, there was a March for Our Lives that was on like, you know, high school campuses and stuff. And that was like, you know, unsure about how the future effects was. And then there was also like, you know, conversations about women's rights in conservative communities. And the other ineffective one would be like there was an attempt to try and keep the location of a school from being forcibly moved because of like, you know, and the ramifications that it could have on students and opportunities, but that was not as successful considering like what we were up against. And also like just the strategies need to be changed. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, who is group number 3 and their spokesperson?
That would be me.
Okay, is that Marlene?
That's Marlene. Yeah.
Okay, all right, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you all so much. It's been great to be here with y'all. In our group, we talked a lot about a big part is the Soul Fire Farm, which is really about bringing back the connection to people of color, people who still have connections to the land, to know that they still can have a relationship with it. They're really great at engaging people through social media and having workshops and really making it a hands-on thing than just a handout. And another big part in our group, we talked about administration and the importance of organizing. So specifically, if it's a pharmacy that has a sign on their window that is very uncomfortable for college students, we had a group member who talked about that. We talked about with George Floyd, the work that's being done to organize and come together to really impact change. And even from the digression of fossil fuels. So we really hit on from the environment to the political cases that are happening to really what can we do to make a mark? And it really comes down to organizing and having a spokesperson or someone who's willing to gather people.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, keeping it moving. Group number 4. Okay. Who's got group number 4? Spokesperson? Do we have a spokesperson for group 4?
Yeah, I can do that. All right.
Okay, all right. That would be Rachel. Whenever you're ready.
Great. So we just talked a little bit about each of our individual experiences as some of the more small scale protests that we've each been a part of. So Claude, a member of our group, they talked about a protest that they were involved in Westchester, which was like a small scale BLM protest that they thought was moderately effective, maybe raising awareness in the local community, but not so much nationally. And then I am from San Francisco, so I was at a protest over the summer that was a march across the Golden Gate Bridge, which was a little bit more like it had a broader audience just because it was in a bigger city. So we just talked about the differences between small scale community knowledge building versus like large scale, the way that like media can help spread the word about different things.
All right, finished early. Okay. No extra credit for that, but thanks for being succinct. Who's got it for group number 5?
That's me.
Okay, her name was Lola. Whenever you're ready.
So 2 of our group members, including me, are from Macalester College in St. Paul. And so we spent a lot of time talking about our ongoing divestment efforts to divest Macalester funds from fossil fuels and the Line 3 pipeline currently ongoing. And so what we got into was the discussion about the diversity of efforts and how it's really important to have a variation in things that you're doing, because things like phone banking and letter writing work for certain people, work for certain aspects, but then other important parts, protests, marches, which is really one of the biggest reasons that I'm super interested in being here today and talking about the intersection of art and activism, because I think that it's in order to remain relevant and engaging for multiple members of your community and for the people you're trying to get the message across to, you have to have a diversity of efforts.
Okay. Once again, thank you for being succinct. Well done. Group number 6, who's our spokesperson?
Hi, I'm going to apologize in advance. I am an awful public speaker, so I'm going to try my best. So we talked about the National School Gun Violence Walkout in 2018. In regards to the walkout, another person had shared that in her high school, they organized a walkout and everyone wore orange. At my high school, which is Immaculate High School in Connecticut, we did a walkout to the gym. They didn't want us doing a complete walkout, but they let us go to the gym and kind of like sit in, and they did more of a presentation style. So we shared poems and art relating to gun control. And because we had uniforms, they actually passed out like ribbons, orange ribbons for us to pin onto our uniforms. So we could wear those for the rest of the day. And attached like is an article about the walkout and a video of the walkout. And a lot of schools participated in it. And a lot of schools, especially in my area around Westchester County, New York, they participated in it as well.
Perfect timing. You're not as bad as you think you are, Sarah. Okay. Where are we now? We're number 7. Who's number 7? Who's our spokesperson?
Hi, I'm speaking for Group 7.
Hi, Jacob.
Oh, what I was just going to say is the example that I was sharing was about an environmental coalition on our campus that was talking about divestment and looking at building a larger coalition of more groups, getting more intersectionality to our organization, and building a larger coalition. And so we were having like an event to kind of build that coalition, give people like the opportunity to speak about like how divestment relates to them for our campus. But then it did not go as planned. It just, timing wasn't apparently the best, we figured out. And so it was really just like our group that was the main group that was there, and none of the other groups weren't really able to attend. So I think like one thing that we were able to learn was like how it wasn't that effective because like of timing, and also like how we advertise and like engage with other groups, I think needs to be like thought through like deeply. And I think we didn't engage with that at like a deeper meaning, and like how do we really effectively connect with others.
Well done. Thank you, Jacob. Okay, moving on along. We got 3 groups left. Who's number 8? Spokesperson for group number 8. Group 8? Anybody?
I guess I can speak for.
Okay, Evan. All right.
So basically, we talked about. I mentioned the national walkout, which a few other people have mentioned, that happened at my school in Philadelphia, and we went to City Hall and marched down Broad Street and protested there. I'm not sure how effective it was in the short term, but in the long term, with other protests, I think the walkout is probably going to be effective, or hopefully will be, towards like gun control. Then we also talked about instance that happened in Cameroon, where basically there was an organization, I think at, I'm not sure about the specifics, but an organization trying to get waste management done better, or people throwing away their trash in trash cans, but it was ineffective just because they weren't figuring out how to put trash cans in more convenient places. They were just trying to get the word out. And then I think we also talked about, yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Great job. Okay. Number 9. Who's our spokesperson for group 9?
Our slide has been much updated since that one.
Okay, sorry about that. All right.
Okay. From the PowerPoint, we talked about climate march and school strikes. Many organizations and clubs come together to educate people about environmental issues facing the world. These organizations also attend global conferences to speak to international representatives. There are in-person marches where people skip school to protest climate injustices and demand policy change. They bring activists in, example was Greta Thunberg, to talk about their work and current environmental problems we face on a global level. And the power of these hundreds or thousands of people participating in these marches emphasizes the need for change and the level of support behind environmental activism.
That's succinct. Well done. Thank you. I do see that your slide is expanded, but again, you will all have access to these after the fact. Thank you for your efforts, though. It's beautiful. And then now, last but not least, group number 10. Where you at?
Hi,
Julia?
Just Julia is fine.
Okay.
So we talked about a couple of things, mainly the Echo Park protest, which consisted of trying to keep the authorities from expelling people who were houseless and sleeping at the parks. And it wasn't effective, mainly because the protesters didn't have the means to resist to LAPD violence. And then on digital actions, we had the Black Lives Matters digital fundraising, which was fairly effective. In Brazil, I'm from Brazil, there was a law that some politicians tried to pass, and it initially sounded like a really good thing, but the rest of the text was actually pretty bad. And there was a lot of online action to make people aware of the real content of the law, and it was effective. A lot of people heard about it and they got really mad, and then we did a lot of action. It all didn't pass. And then there was also with the Senate Bill 30, which was about like conversion therapy, and there was a lot of protests to keep it from happening. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, that makes for all of the groups. I think everyone did a fantastic job. Monica, where you at? We're gonna give us some notes, some thoughts? Yeah, we can, I think from the moment, go off of the screen share. And how much time do we have for giving our thoughts and feedback?
Not like a couple minutes.
Yeah, a couple minutes. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll take the lead. I just want to say what I do notice is that the majority of the examples given were actually about what went well. And I think that's really encouraging, because I think you need to go into this with the spirit of expectation and positive energy, hoping for the best. I also noticed that so many of the tactics of the historic civil rights movement still set a precedent for the things that we do today, just having to adopt them to modern times. I noticed that there was an amplification of the importance of what I call the introverts. Introverts have special powers. Not everyone has to be on the front line shaking tambourines and maracas to be successful. Yes, someone has to do, as I put it, when you can't be in the streets, you got to do the spreadsheets. They're just as important. And finally, I think one of the main things that influence whether an action doesn't go as well is when you don't think beyond the core of people who are doing the action. You really do have to think of the ripple of stakeholders and other people and how they may be affected or not affected by the action and the message. And I'm gonna pass it to Monica.
Yes, Dragonfly does, I will account for, make sexy spreadsheets. It is true. So I took some notes on, thank you so much all for, you did such a huge amount of work in little time. So thank you for that, and for making space for everyone to be able to be heard. So things I noticed is that people talked about how making actions that are extremely like memorable, high risk actions led by people who are most impacted by the protest are going to be the ones that have the staying power to continue to raise consciousness. Getting big numbers can be really helpful. Getting big turnout does build power, but it doesn't need to start that way. Someone said, I think it was the Soulfire, Marlene, hands-on rather than hand out, which I really love that. Being intersectional, so important for the power of movements with racial justice, with land sovereignty, food justice. Soulfire, I think, does that. I've been to that farm. They do all of that so well. And having strong spokespeople, knowing who the people are who are most impacted, who have the most to gain and most to lose, for them to be at the front and to be the spokespeople is so important. And then to sometimes have big mediagenic locations in larger cities if you can, to get the awareness further and bigger visibility, but also the importance of the local education and outreach too in smaller places, and to make those actions somehow pop with your imagery or with your storytelling so that they can transcend the limitations of the small townness or the ruralness of where some of these actions are. And then the levels of accessibility for people to enter at any point that they can is so important to stay relevant for people and multiple members of the community to be able to jump in social media or physically or however they can. Like I think we learned a lot from the disability rights movement here for folks who have now been on Zoom and been doing activism through virtual and been seeing the benefits and the power of virtual organizing that people have been doing for so long. And then using uniformity and color for many people to immediately feel that they're part of it and unified with your clothing. It's a way to instantly show team and show community spirit and bring people in. And timing is everything. I loved that people brought in some ineffective ones too, and how timing is so important, and needing to engage with the communities deeply that you're working with. You can't have superficial connections. It's not going to work. And then you need to choose the right target. You need to choose tactics that are strategic to that. We're going to talk about this in a second. And then how to prepare and be resilient for state violence. Wow, you got to train. You got to know how to protect each other and be safe. That's a whole other training. Make sure you get trained in all that. That's a big discussion to talk about. That's my 2 cents from what I heard. Thank you for all of that.
Oh, and there was one other thing I wanted to add that I think is like sort of an overarching umbrella, is understanding that one action, one tactic is most likely not going to achieve your goal. It's part of a broader campaign, and that's the importance of having the intersectionality and coalition building and understanding your place in the lineage of similar actions so that you can connect to that, bring it into the present. Think about how many times you've had to get a message in order for you to get it. Just like what Monica just said about the disability rights movement. It took a lot of repetition. Think of how long now people are starting to realize what it means to have a preferred pronoun, because again, so many coalitions of people over time. So you're part of that drip, 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 drip. Thank you. Pass it back to Monica.
Thanks all. So Mame, can we go back to the screen? Although I love seeing all your faces and the emojis coming through. Let's go back to the next slide. Thank you. So really quick, yes, right here. So really quick to talk about, we started to talk about this a little bit. So the big picture of strategy, it happens at a couple levels, right? So if you look at this and think about starting with the vision, what is like dream big? What is the future for your campaign? What do you want to see in the world and how do you make that happen? And then looking at the daily work of the mission and the goals and the principles of your organization, of your group, and then assessing what are the opportunities, the strengths, the weaknesses, who are your allies? We're going to talk about this more. Who's your base? Who do you have to target that can give you power? And then going into goals and making clear short-term and medium-term and long-term goals to get you back to your vision. And then mapping out the strategy steps and laying out your plan to get you back to your win. And then unless you've done all of this work before, to get to tactics. Like a lot of times I see, especially with new organizers, that they get right into tactics, which I did too. It's just like, if you start learning how to climb, then you want to climb buildings no matter what, and like bang a banner. And even if it's not the right strategy, even if it's not the right location, even if you don't have the proper training for it. So to think about like not getting lost in the tactics, because that can be the cart before the horse, right? So you want to actually build the strategy and use tactics within that are most effective for getting you to your goal. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it. We're going to use these tools to get into this more deeply. I'm going to pass it back to Dragonfly to get into the first tool.
Okay, all right. So this brings it again back to where so many of us get our foundational understanding of how actions in civil rights works. And we're going to use Freedom Summer as the example to talk about spectrum of allies. Now, you'll see on the bottom left-hand corner a little image that demonstrates visually what the spectrum of allies looks like. You have to identify who is and who is not on your side up front before you go any further. Reason why is because if we can go to the next slide, you'll see all the way on the right, there are going to be some active opponents, opposition that no matter what, you're just not going to change these people. Unless you like walking around with an open head wound and because you're going to be banging your head against the wall. Don't even bother. All right. All the way to the left, obviously, you probably fall into that because you are not just saying I'm in solidarity, but taking action. I'm not a big fan of the word ally because a lot of people will claim that they're an ally and all they've done is put a poster up in their window. I like to think active accomplice because you're putting action to it. Just like how they say love is not a feeling, it's an action. And justice is what love looks like in public, right? So think of it on those terms. And then, of course, you've got the people who are in the neutral, which I would argue that if you're neutral, you're actually more likely still on the opponent's side because the sin of omission and the silence is what allows evil to take place. We learned that lesson from Nazi Germany. I hate to invoke the Nazis, but it's true, right? So with that said, let's go ahead and move to the next slide because we have more specific examples as connected to Freedom Summer. Monica and I debated, we were like, well, what exactly is the distinction between a passive and an active opponent? Well, when we were talking about actual violence, right? When you are at the risk of being physically harmed, I would consider an active opponent. And obviously that includes law enforcement, segregationists, militias, the politicians who actually write legislation and influence people to do those physical harms against you, what is now known as stochastic terrorism. And again, these organizations that form for the purpose of creating harm. Passive opponents, I would say the local media, because there's so much documentation from that era of how the local media would spin things, as well as omission. For example, there's examples of how the Black press kept more accurate documents of lynchings than the mainstream media. So again, sin of omission is a form of passive opposition. I decided that the national media is neutral. They're just reporting about it, but without a tone of solidarity. And then when you go into passive and active allies, well, passive allies, even then, I'm not sure that white students in the North could fall either way. Signing a petition to me is a form of passive allyship. But then when you start putting your money where your mouth is, when you again start talking to people and having conversations, arguing with your racist uncle at Thanksgiving, and then of course the active allies again are those who are actually doing the work. They're usually the frontline stakeholders. And I also cannot underemphasize the importance of our already existing infrastructure for organizing, churches, clubs. Regardless of religious affiliation, I think most Black Americans are Christian by culture, if not by spirituality, because of the understanding of the role that the Black church has played in our collective liberation. Same thing with clubs. Not a big fan of Greek life and fraternities and sororities, as well as social clubs, because they do tend to be elitist. But you also cannot deny the fact that these are the same organizations that also organize and put their money where their mouth is in terms of the historic civil rights movement and making the change that we understand. So the goal of creating the spectrum of allies is, how can I shift passive opponents at least to neutral? How can I shift the people who are neutral into being passive allies? And then how can we shift the passive allies into being active accomplices? Even just a little bit. Okay, they put the sign up in their window. Now have them come to an action or join an organization that's actually doing the work. So this is really important structure. This is one of the main methodologies in being strategic, and especially in relation to some of those examples that you gave previously of actions that didn't quite work out because you didn't think about the whole picture. All right. And I'm now going to pass it to Monica. Or wait, no. Yeah, Monica. I'm passing to you to talk about points of intervention.
Thank you, Dragonfly. So we're going to be able to use these tools that when we get into breakout groups later. So spectrum of allies is one, or spectrum of accomplices and opponents. And you can use that, or the second one that we're going to speak about now is a point of intervention. So a point of intervention, so I'm a theater performer and Dragonfly is too. So it's easy and natural for us to look at when we're staging a protest, that we're thinking about it as staging like a performance, right? That the set, the location for the action is like a theater set, right? That I see people as being naturally hardwired for narrative and for storytelling. So you can use that to your advantage and think about, how is this story going to relate? How am I going to use even the architecture and the whole space for my advantage to show the story that I want to show and to change it? So a point of intervention is a physical or conceptual place within a system where pressure can be put to disrupt its smooth functioning and or push for change. So it's physical or conceptual. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Next slide, please. So this one is a really exciting one. This was an action at point of production. So these GE and other workers walked out, this was early on in the pandemic, and they demanded that instead of making, they wanted to make ventilators. So they walked out and they're like, we want to switch what we're doing. We're going to stop what we're doing now. And we want to start building something that's actually what's needed right now for people in this country suffering so much. So they did socially distance, physically distance strikes and protests out in the streets. And they demanded that they convert their work to this, which was amazing. Next slide.
All right. Action at the point of production is so important because you got to hit them where it hurts. All right. Citizens United claims that money is free speech. That can work to our advantage as well. It's basically boils down to, listen, if you don't give me what I need to live with dignity under your employment, then I'm going to deny you what it takes for you to make that profit. We see this happening right now with what's going on in Alabama, in Amazon, Whole Foods, Instacart, Target, etc. And it still works. Next slide.
Yeah, so that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I'm really proud to say that I actually went to Standing Rock and witnessed for myself the amazing power of the most nonviolent protest possible, which was prayer in the water. And it's pretty compelling to see something like people praying in the face of machines designed to destroy. And I also like to connect it to how they were unable to be there for their ancestors to stop the destruction of their land. So instead, they're now employing their ancestors' tactics to stop it today. Next slide. Oh, this is another beautiful nonviolent destruction. And here's the other thing to think about. Actions don't necessarily have to be about what you're going against. It can also be what you're advocating for and offering services to the people in the front lines who are the most affected. So instead of going and petitioning and whatnot to stop the evictions, these are mothers. I mean, can't get more maternal than mothers making sure that people have home and food and shelter by going out and raising awareness of the homeless epidemic and stopping evictions right when they happen. Next slide. Oh, this one's so fun because Monica and I just did this one last summer. So They're trying to build yet another fossil fuel pipeline through Brooklyn and specifically through some of the poorest and most disenfranchised communities without any notification. So we created a series of public performances through each of those neighborhoods that were specific to each of those neighborhoods to bring awareness to the community, to educate them, to start the conversations and the buzz about the things that the organization, the utility company, failed to inform them of, and it culminated into a performance right outside of the headquarters of National Grid. We are not a sacrifice zone, National Grid. Next slide.
So yes, thank you, Dragonfly. So the first one was point of production, right? Which is so important to hit them, like Dragonfly said, hit them where it hurts, in the pocket, right? If you're like, we all saw that boat in the Suez Canal, when things get stuck and product can't move, like that's when change can come about. So this is that action at point of destruction. So which often is the playground for the rural areas, right? Where there's pipelines going through indigenous land, where there's deforestation and things like that. But point of destruction, like Dragonfly also said, is also about like houses getting foreclosed on and things like that. So think about where these points that you can use. So this one is something that I did with the group in Westchester and outside New York City. And this was a pipeline, the Spectra fracked gas pipeline coming through right by people's homes, right by Indian Point, a nuclear power plant. And so we built this shipping container, which was a home. It had solar panels, it had bicycle generated power inside, it had compost toilet, it had food for these two lovely people to be inside for at least 2 weeks to blockade. And we plopped it right down in the middle of construction. So we showed what we want to see instead. And we showed that we're putting a house here and a home because you're destroying our homes. So we're going to put it in the path of your destruction. Next slide, please. And then also this was an action that we did at, oh, you can't see now with this new thing here at the top, but I'm up there, I'm on the smokestack there 300 feet in the air with some farmers. But down below here, there are people that are, since we were working with farmers, we locked down to this tractor, which you can't see, but it's bright green tractor there. And we made lock boxes welded onto it and had people all locked around to it and made this beautiful sunburst. So out in this area that was just destroyed, it was on near indigenous land, like some of the oldest indigenous land in New York. And they just put up this massive fracked gas power plant. And so we brought all of this color and energy and song and held this blockade all day long and shut down the whole plant. Next slide. And this was also another action at the North Brooklyn pipeline, which Dragonfly was bringing up. This is a group, Brownsville Residents Green Committee, that we work with too. And so this was a youth-led action where they went into the construction site there and they brought giant photos blown up of youth there from a group in Brownsville. And so there was all these teenagers that had these signs held up that said, "I will not be sacrificed," because what fracking companies say is they call places like that a sacrifice zone. And it's usually poor and BIPOC communities that become sacrifice zones. So that was a really powerful action. And they shut down construction all day with no arrests. Next slide. And then to see something that's more more tactical, more technical, that needs a lot of skill and a lot of training for. I work with Greenpeace, and this was a Greenpeace action that happened in Portland. And so this was to stop the big Arctic boat that was going, the Shell boat that was going up to the Arctic to break through and to start to drill for oil. And so they knew the timing. That's also action at point of opportunity. They knew the timing that was going to happen. Like, it's so amazing when you have those opportunities to take it, and we're able to block it from above with climbers on the bridge, and then below with activists down below from every point, and to keep that boat from moving through. Highly visible action. A lot of people saw it. It was great. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I put these two together because though they're in the same lineage, you also, once again, sometimes past tactics don't apply to the current time. because there's a ripple effect in the boycotts. The Montgomery bus boycott was effective because of the optics of the documentation. Rosa Parks was specifically chosen to be the face because of respectability politics, and it worked. To see the antagonism of active opponents will definitely cause a reaction with anyone with just a modicum of sympathy, right? Turning someone neutral one notch over. It hurt them because the majority of the bus riders were Black domestics who were being abused. As you see from this picture, they didn't have any riders. So that boycott was effective. However, there are a lot of people, including Stacey Abrams, who are saying, do not boycott Georgia. The reason why, times have changed. We're not just domestics. Black people have corporate jobs. They are throughout the community. And so to boycott, just blanket boycott the state, will actually end up hurting Black people who are employed and have businesses and whatnot. Because as the saying goes, last hired, first fired. So if these companies are hurt, who's ultimately going to be hurt? So keep that in mind. Next slide. Oh, this is me as Miss Justice Jester in action. So the Armory Show disruption is an example of nonviolent protest and the use of cultural tools for change. During the die-in, the fellow activists, as you'll see on the image on the left, we sang, recited original poetry, invoked repetitive movement. People at the art show thought it was part of the show until security got involved. What Miss Justice Jester does with the tambourine is I borrowed the old civil rights anthem, Keep Your Eyes on the Prize, and update the lyrics to tell the stories of unarmed Black people who were murdered by the police. So with the tambourine and the attention of everyone, by the end of this spectacle, I, Miss Justice Jester, sang those lyrics until I was literally shoved out of the door by security. And also want to amplify the importance of having your own documentation, because that is so important. Think about how the images of the past still affect us today. And if we hadn't done our own documentation, this event would not be documented and able to present to you today. You got to frame your own story. Next slide. Thank you, Claude.
Okay, so we're in consumption now, right? So this is the point of intervention that is most accessible, because it's the area of shopping. So it's banks, it's shopping malls, it's stores, it's in the public eye. So it's very accessible, and there's lots of points of intervention here to play with. So this is in Spain. They're very good at doing bank disruptions there and flash mobs in banks especially. So this was a group Flow X8 that uses flamenco and does these incredible flamenco dances inside banks to highlight their corruption. And then this one on the side here in the bottom corner was a bunch of people went into this bank. Someone went to pull their funds out and say, I'm leaving this bank because of your corrupt ways. And everyone who was there suddenly popped out champagne. This woman who looked like she was pregnant suddenly pulled out a disco ball and started throwing it around, and they just had a big party. And so everyone got this news that if you pull your money out of this bank, you're going to be celebrated. And so because there's a lot of compassion fatigue in activism, as Dragonfly brought up earlier. So it's important sometimes that we celebrate people and that we invite this, if it's right, the right tone for your campaign and for your action. Next slide. And also with songs. So this was at an auction for foreclosed houses in the Brooklyn courthouses. And so as soon as they started to call out the houses that people could bid on, that they had taken away from so many people that were just being kicked out on the street, we all started to sing the same song that we knew. And we just sang it peacefully, because anyone can attend these auctions. So we just sang and sang, and they were so shocked, and they just looked at us and didn't know what to do for like an hour. And they finally brought in police, and we were singing, we got up on our feet, and then finally they arrested us all. But we continued to do this through courthouses and shut down these houses getting foreclosed on. Next slide.
All right. So now we're actually at the point of decision making. As you see, Georgia State Rep Park Cannon was arrested just for knocking on the door while they were signing the controversial bill in Georgia that has led to the boycott or don't boycott. It's, you see, even though it's now come out that she was not going to be charged, even though she initially faced felony charges, I think it's important to show that actions can also still come from just one individual, from a single, humble, and noble act. That even elected officials are targeted individuals in the face of fighting oppression. And again, showing the range of what activism can look like, can have a big flash mob, people wearing the same colors, singing in unison, to one person knocking on the door. And the documentation, once again, is what matters. Next slide. Oh yeah, who's gonna take that? I can take that. We can both take that.
Right.
I mean, here's another example of one person making a big difference. I mean, I know not all of us are built to scale of flagpole, but just look at that picture. That's Wonder Woman, that's Superwoman. Monica?
Yeah, so a lot of people were talking about on social media, like, should we take down the Confederate flag at the State House in South Carolina? And Bree Newsom just went up and took direct action, and she did it without asking for permission. That's direct action, is moving towards a social justice or need without asking permission from a middle person first. And so she went up there and climbed up and got it down, and their end of story.
And when you argue that this was also the jump off of what we're now seeing as a chain reaction that's even global, when they took down the statue of the slave trader in Bristol, England. Come on now. Next slide.
Okay, so also you can use visual indicators too, right? Especially in time of pandemic. This was an action in Italy where construction workers were protesting the loss of jobs at the stock exchange, and they laid out all of these construction hats to show the absence of people can be really powerful too, and using this signifier of a visual metaphor or like a sort of costume or notion of that. Next slide, please. And since you're students, if you don't know about this protest movement, you should. There's a free university, Cooper Union in New York City, and they started to institute in-state tuition again. And so students went and occupied the president's of the school's office there, and had a big banner like Dragonfly, and I went and sang to them from below with a big group of people. People were sending pizzas up to them. It was a rallying point. It was in the middle of the city, downtown, and just built a lot of momentum and power. And they had a lot of victory with that. Next slide, please. And so using cultural, like knowing your cultural references and the terrain for how people in your area, the target audience that you need to reach, what are things that they can be brought in by cultural references. And so this is using Handmaid's Tale at the Brett Kavanaugh hearings here in DC. And so they without even saying a word or having written messaging on a banner, they were just silent witnesses being witness to the whole hearing as sort of this haunting presence there. Really strong protest that got a lot of imagery out in the news. Next slide, please. And this also really powerful image in Tamil Nadu, these farmers that were dealing with a lot of drought went to and did this a hunger strike, as well as these tableau images that they would do, since they weren't eating and couldn't eat because they were dealing with so much drought and not getting resources. They would put things like hay and straw in their mouths, and dead rats and things like that, and would hold these long images. Really powerful and strong. Next slide, please.
So a term that is often used for when you're taking certain cultural images, like we just saw with the Handmaid's Tale, and then turning it on its head, is called culture jamming. And action at the point of assumption is usually some form of culture jamming. Of course, the assumption is that women are meek and they'll, put up with whatever we do to them. And then you meet the guerrilla girls. And even then, the double entendre of guerrilla, as in when we think of guerrilla warfare, but actual guerrilla mass. No, these are women that are going to come and eat your face off if you don't give us what we want. So, and using it also as a tool to educate people about the way that women are being treated. People assume, oh, well, it's 19 whatever, because this is from the late 1900s, which feels weird to say, but yes, the late 1900s, that they think that women got with equality, and yet less than 5% of the artists in most museums are women, but it's full of naked women's bodies. Not cool. So next slide. Another assumption is how the Black Panther Party is somehow incredibly violent organization, but that's the assumption that persists to this day. However, what also persists is the legacy of the National Free Breakfast Program in public schools. This is an embodiment of Malcolm X's philosophy, by any means necessary. And once again, the assumption is to go to the lowest common denominator. But the fact that you had breakfast available in your school is thanks to the Black Panther Party, because feeding people is another form of self-defense and probably one of the most radically nonviolent actions possible in the name of equity, dignity, and justice. Next slide. All right. So assumptions are made from incomplete information, and the truth often hides in plain sight. This is my most current performance activism project called the Absconded Project. It's public performances in both physical and digital realm, challenging George Washington and other monuments by embodying Ona Judge, who was enslaved by the first family and self-emancipated at age 22. So by dressing up as a living statue, actual monument in relationship to all of these monuments, including buildings and landmarks. Also, names of national holidays are cleverly renamed to amplify the counter narrative. So the first invocation was Labor Day, hashtag unpaid Labor Day. The sticker that you see in the middle and the image of the quarter remixed was on Precedence Day, not President's Day, but the precedent of oppression that starts with the first president. Next slide. Continuing the theme of giving the counter narrative and challenging the revisionist versions of history, and also, again, doing it at the location where the lie, omission, or disinformation occurs. Also, the Absconded Project also went to the Museum of National History and challenged that hideous Teddy Roosevelt statue and left a puddle of blood there in the form of red paint. Okay, and always document it for posterity. Next slide.
Okay, I might make this the last one because we're just a couple minutes over time. So this is one of my favorite actions. So this was a drag queen, Pauline Pantsdown, that was created after this very xenophobic politician in Australia, Pauline Hanson, came into view. And Pauline Hanson's main platform was anti-Asian, was keeping Asian immigrants out of Australia. And so Pauline Pantsdown created this drag queen to mock her and to take away some of her power, and created these amazing music videos and took her actual recordings of Pauline Hanson's voice and would change the words and make it be like, there's a song like, I don't like it, I don't like anything, with this great dance beat. And then Pauline Hanson did what you should never do and sued the drag queen. And then people would come out and learned about the song. And whenever Pauline Hanson's cavalcade would come around, people would bring their boom boxes out and blast the song at her. And she just slowly lost her power and her favor with the people. So power of comedy is fantastic. Next slide, please.
One more slide. Can we jump to 51 since we need to truncate? Because that's the one that has both of us in it.
Okay.
Keep going. There we go. Back up. Back one slide, please. You just go back. Or not. Okay.
So we'll send the
Number 51.
There's a couple more slides in there that are from really powerful actions, and we'll send that to you so you can get a chance to see it.
Oh man, I wanted y'all to see what we did.
But let's now take a quick bio break. Let's take a, oh, there it is.
Yay.
You want to take it, Dragonfly?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. We climbed into the globe at Trump International Hotel on the same day of his first State of the Union speech. And we dropped an anti-deportation banner from outside the globe. And I love the way that we actually use the power of assumption to get into the globe. We had some ally accomplices roll up in a hard hat and a suit and a 10-foot ladder. So we were able to literally just climb up undetected by the police until they realized about, 15 minutes later that we were in there and what we were doing. And I also think that that's the reason why now it's barricaded and nobody can approach the globe. There was also another action taking place over at Trump Tower, and we all ended up being in jail together. And what did we do? We sang songs to each other. So sometimes the action is not just for the outside, but activists themselves need to cheer each other on. And this is a good time to take a break.
Thanks so much for that, DJ. Okay, so we're gonna break out into groups now. And since you are smaller groups, I think 15 minutes will be a good enough time to have everyone be able to be heard in those groups. So can we go back to the slide, Mame? Are you there?
Yeah, let's do another screen share. I think we are on we're on slide number 53 now. So in the interest of time, we must assign, as you know, we did study your interest, and we already created, assigned what your issue is going to be based on those issues. And what you'll see is that, let's see. Oh, actually, Monica, are you explaining this or am I? forgot? Sorry.
You are.
Okay, right. So let's see the next slide. So you are welcome to choose either of the tactics that we went over, either spectrum of allies, or you can also use, you'll see on the next slide, there's the chart. So you would do something very similar to that to identify who are your opponents all the way down to who are your allies, accomplices, and then come up with the strategy going forward. Make sure institutions are represented and not just individuals, religious, labor, business, government, social, etc., as well as important influential individuals. Next slide. You can also instead do the points of intervention, which again, we just shared with you several examples of each of these different points of intervention. One that we did not go into in detail is points of opportunity. However, there is the image of that particular card in the card deck that you can refer to if you want to also incorporate that into your strategy. But as a group, decide which of these two methodologies you want to use as the framework for your planning. And you each have your own little mini slide deck. If you go to the next slide, please, and you'll see we've already assigned it to you. We've also provided some links if you need reference on the fly for you to refer to concerning that issue. So we've given you each a very specific campaign goal. We've done as much of the pre-planning for you so you can get right down to business once you determine what your methodology will be. Okay? Did I cover everything, Monica?
Yeah, so at the, if you go back into the presentation, all of you that have it off probably to the side, that first slide that Dragonfly showed that had multiple links, that has a link for your group to each thing so you can work in your own copy there. So make sure you go and look in there. And then these campaigns might seem really broad and ambitious. They are, but you're going to just use these tools to come up with one action, one concrete, specific action that's informed by these tools and how you think about what point of intervention do we want to use? What's accessible to us? What strengths do we have? What opportunities do we have to use this tactic, this tool, so that we can make an action that's moving us towards our larger goal in your campaign, towards that. You don't have to achieve it with this one action. It's just one step. And think about looking at, I'm sorry, Dragonfly.
No, go ahead.
Looking at the legislators, the corporations that are invested in the campaign and the issue, looking at popular figures that you could pressure, looking at the access points that you conceivably have to shift power.
And I think it's just really important to get into the mindset of understanding the distinction between a campaign and an action, because we often get discouraged thinking that we're going to change the world with one action, and that is so not the case. And also the broader thinking of who can I build coalition with, again, even with points of intervention, as well as spectrum of allies, who else is on our side. And I think that covers it. Yep.
Go forth. You said 15 minutes, right? So 3, and then we'll come back and we'll do a 10-minute share back.
This is going well. I'm enjoying myself.
It's a great group. Oh, Louise and Shania are still here.
Yeah, it looks like they had to accept the invite, so maybe they had to get away from their computer for a sec.
Cut them.
Well, we won't say anything about them until they're gone.
Yeah, a few people, a little bit of attrition, a couple people dropped off, but most people are still here, so that's great. And I mean, the chat was blowing up when y'all were doing those presentations, which was really fun.
I'm looking forward to reading them later.
Yeah, I love every time people talk about spectrum of allies and points of intervention, especially with examples. It just gets people all riled up with their creativity juices flowing, and especially with spectrum of allies, it starts to make sense. You're like, oh yeah, like that person says they're ally, but they're not. So I guess they're a passive ally, or maybe they're just neutral. So it really resonates with people. It's exciting to see those wheels turn.
So because we're slightly behind, let's think through our
How
time.
far are we behind?
Well, if they come back in 15, so we let them 2 minutes ago, so just before 3, and then if they have 10 minutes for sharing back, 3:10, then we only have 5 minutes to close it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we are pretty far behind. Yeah.
So I won't do the action planning slide, which is going to be 3 minutes. So then we'll have those 5 minutes for your closing exercise. Excuse me, Dragonfly, and the person. So that will be time. As long as we stick to time on their debrief, we'll be fine.
Okay. I'm gonna take that slide, and I don't know if that will affect it in the actual screen share, but I took it and put it at the end.
Okay.
The action planning.
So how much time do they have doing this? Is it 15?
15,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So they should come back at, it was
around 3 or a little before 3?
Just before. Let's bring them back.
Like, yeah, 2 minutes before.
I'm gonna get some more water. I mean, I'm impressed at all that young people are spending a Saturday, a
Mhm.
warm, well, I'm assuming warm for most people, Saturday online, learning about strategy. That's impressive.
Mhm. Agreed.
Gives me a lot of hope.
Yes.
Mhm.
That is so cool. I like that you spent a little bit of time highlighting the slide that you both are in, because it shows that you're not just preaching the word, you're you're living it.
That was literally like the very last slide I did at like 12:28 and 30 seconds before tech. And the other thing was like, I was like, I gotta find the picture with all three of us inside the globe.
Those pictures.
Google Photos. I was like, what was the date? I sync my pictures, and I literally was like, that's where I find it. And I went to Google Photos, January 2018. Boom. I know Google is evil, but they're also awesome.
I have an Android as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think Android is a superior platform than I bought like a late model iPhone, but never used. I've had it for months. I just can't put my SIM card in it. I hate that. I hate the interface. I bought it to do media and make media and to get on the damn Clubhouse everybody was talking about, but you know. But I gotta put my SIM card in to do the Clubhouse, so I just ain't gonna be on Clubhouse. Should we give them a time check?
Yeah, that's a good. Do you want to broadcast
I
it
think
to
we're at
them?
10 minutes.
10
Yes.
minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
A little less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, man, I can change the world from my phone with some Google Drive. Kind of bonkers.
So in terms of share back, is everybody still going to have 1 minute, or is that going to be a little abbreviated?
What do you think? Should we have them
45 seconds?
write it in the chat, or should we just look at, I don't know. If we have to go to each,
Yeah.
that'll take some time, maybe.
Should we ask for volunteers? Say maybe just take 3 and they each get like a minute and a half? Or how about a minute, one for each campaign, but only one group?
But it's nice to hear the difference between them. I think we could still do, I mean, they were able to do a minute. Now they know the drill. So if we gave each group a minute again, I don't know.
What are they reporting back on exactly? Maybe like if it's something succinct, like you, I don't know, say it in one sentence or something, or is that not enough?
Maybe what their action is, like what their target is, what their action is, and a little bit about how they came to that, why they think that would be strategic.
Like, what is the tool that they chose? And what is the action? I mean, just real super to the point. And
Oh, I was just saying I could broadcast that to the groups and say like, you know, please pick somebody to share when we come back. 1, what is the tool you chose? And 2, what is the action? Does that sound right?
Wait, I feel like there needs to be a little more than that, like who their target is, and or yeah, like how they're using the tool, like either a spectrum or a point of intervention, like to name the point of intervention or to name the target or the allies. Like it's how do we say that succinctly? I just want to know the why, you know. I want to know why they chose it.
So how about like why they chose their methodology and how are they using it? That's pretty succinct. Yeah.
We could also give the option that if they want to just put it in the chat, or if they'd like to share out, then we could have it that way to have more time for folks who want to share publicly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we could give them that option and tell them now.
Okay. Ariel, do you want to do that?
Yeah, sure. What's the phrasing that you'd like?
Mm-hmm.
So to have one person ready to present, or so there's an option for one person to present or to put it in the chat, to share by the chat, and that we'd like them to present what tool they chose, how it informs the action, what is the action. Yeah, I guess that's it.
What is, okay, so one person ready to present what tool your group chose, what is the action and why you chose it?
Sure.
Chose what, the action or the tool?
Chose the action.
Yes.
Okay.
Why you chose the action, or B, to drop it in the chat when you come back.
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
I think they're down to 3 minutes too.
Yes.
time really does fly.
Yeah, I mean, with 100 people too, like it's, or no, it's not 100, it was like 60 or something, right?
Yeah, it's like we have about 50, which is, I'm low key think it's better for everybody to have smaller groups and actually be able to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out that way.
Yeah, you never know with attrition how many people exactly are going to show. I think with all the virtual opportunities, we've heard people sign up and then just don't show up.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're not going to give them the chance to do the what are you taking away from this session, you think?
Oh yeah, we can do that. They can just write that in really fast in a minute after your exercise.
Okay. So what do you think? Should we still just have like presentations from 5 of the groups?
I guess we have to see how many want to put in the chat.
Okay. How about we tell them, if you want to make your presentation verbally, please put stack in the chat and let them know that we're going to take like the first 5 in the interest of time.
Okay.
And then everyone else, we would like for you to share the answers to our prompts in the chat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That works.
Should I close the rooms now? That'll give them 60 seconds, or
Yes.
do they? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to roll that out, Dragonfly.
I can roll that out, yes.
Oh, doggy.
National Pet Day.
Oh!
He's blind, so he's always like, where are you? I gotta be in your lap.
Oh, oh my goodness. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Hello.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Cha cha cha, welcome back. Cha cha cha, welcome back. Yeah, yeah, welcome back. Cha cha cha. Welcome back. Welcome back, yeah. Welcome back. Welcome back, yeah. Da 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 da. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, welcome back. Cha cha cha. Welcome back. Cha cha cha. Welcome back. Cha cha cha. Yeah. Ooh, welcome back. I told you, you got to be goofy. Because, you know, in the face of oppression. Okay, so in the interest of time, we are going to verbally hear back from one group for each issue. And the other 5 are going to give their feedback, answer to the prompts in the chat. So, voter accessibility. If you are one of the groups that wants to present, put stack in the chat. It's first come, first serve. Group 1 or group 6. 1 is going to do it. 6, you're in the chat. Group 2 or 7 for Universities Invest in Justice. All right? Who's going to be the verbal one? Don't be shy. All right. Group 2. Group 7, you're going to answer in the chat. Group 3 or group 8. Medical rights protected? Okay. 3 is on it. Wow. 8, you're in the chat. Who is going to do cancel student debt? Group 4 or group 9? Gone once. Going twice. Don't be shy. Everybody got student debt. All right. 4 is going to take it. Group 9, you're going to answer in the chat. And last but not least, auctioning off the presentations, environmental justice, group 5 or group 10. Who's going to do that? Who got that? Come on. Going once. Going twice. Don't be shy. We need you. Who's going to say it? No? Really? Y'all shy?
We could hear from another group too, maybe, if one of the groups wanted to.
No, I think we got one.
Yeah, we got 10. Okay, so group 5, you're going to be in the chat. Okay, again, in the interest of time, we're going to let, you know, he or she, they, android, gender neutral, be the timekeeper, all right? And we're going to start with group 1 with voter accessibility. The campaign goal, prevent or stop legalized systematic suppression of Black voters, while group 6 gives their report in the chat. Group 1, who's your spokesperson?
I am.
Okay, let's hear it from Michael.
So I'm just going to read off our points of intervention. That's what we worked on instead of the spectrum of allies. For points of intervention for production, we thought the place which should be factories and the manufacturing plants of businesses that donate to legislatures that back this bill. You know, go after the money, go after what these people rely on to keep their political careers, going. And the action should involve organizing union members and leadership to strike in coordination with the voting on the bill. That helps a lot of people get attention because strikes are, rare in the U.S. due to how tough they are, and due to the power of capital preventing these actions from going on really in the first place, due to the National Labor Relations Board and stuff like that. Destruction, we thought state capitol and the governor's office or any state legislature's office would fit. Block legislatures from entering the state capitol. Pretty much, we couldn't really think of anything for destruction because we don't want to actually block the electoral process, like going to voting booths and stuff or polling stations. So we thought we'd leave that, because that would be a bit counterintuitive. For consumption, both we can do this virtually and basically through like e-commerce and stuff. Is that the timer?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
You can finish in the chat because we definitely want to hear back from everyone. And when you do go into the chat, make sure every line that you put your group number, because it's probably going to be an asynchronous report back. But it's all juicy stuff that we will probably include when we also send the slide deck. All right. Thank you so much. And let's see. Group 2 is going to report back on Universities Invest in Justice. The goal is college and university divestment from private prisons and detention facilities. Who is going to speak on that for Group 2?
I just want to add really quickly that you can just share one action. You don't need to share an action from each point or each thing. Just share one action that has to do with, it's informed by those tools. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so we used the spectrum of allies and we identified allies from each area and of course opponents from each area. In terms of active allies, it's about what you'd expect: incarcerated individuals and their families, immigrants, and we also had more ethical investment alternatives for universities to consider. For active opponents, it's also what you would expect: the board of trustees and school administrations, which make the decisions to invest in that, and of course the private corporations, which benefit from private prisons. For passive allies, we have the support systems of students who are activists and things like that. For passive opponents, we have stockholders of the private corporations, as well as local governments, which benefit from the jobs that private prisons can bring. And then lastly, we have the neutrals. In here, we have a lot of uninformed people on the issues, and as well as students, because while students may be activists and want to fight against that sort of thing being funded by their schools, they also are indirectly funding it themselves through paying tuition to a school that does that, as well as members of the communities where the prisons are located.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Beautiful, exciting. Moving on. Group 3, medical rights protected for LGBTQ. Campaign goal: stop harmful legislation that takes away rights to health care for LGBTQ. Who is our spokesperson, and are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. So we did the spectrum of allies, just like the prior group, the main active opponents being the lawmakers who are making all these, especially anti-trans bills. For passive opponents, we also had Asa Hutchinson, the Arkansas governor, who vetoed the anti-trans bill but did not build a coalition against it. Neutral, maybe like institutions and schools who maybe do some like LGBTQ rights stuff, but only because they were told to by their students. Passive allies being family members, friends who have of LGBTQ people, especially trans people, and then active allies being the ACLU, Transgender Law Center. We also put Reverend Jasmine Beach Ferreira, the executive director of the Campaign for Southern Equality, and other kind of main institutions, along with other more public activists.
I'm loving how specific these are. So great.
Agreed. Like, I also love giving the alternative of, like, if you don't do this, we think you should do that. Offer the solution. That is awesome. Moving on to group 4, right? Cancel student debt. Probably relates to all of us. Gain commitment from elected officials to support cancellation of $50,000 debt per student. I believe, again, that's group 4. Who's going to speak on that?
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So in the interest of kind of convincing elected officials to move towards canceling student debt, we talked about potentially staging a protest or a sit-in at either state or federal capitol or legislative building. None of us in the group were very well informed as to like how the allocation of funds for loans work. So we weren't sure if it would be more effective to kind of protest legislation or like lenders and kind of banks and universities directly. But yeah, that was kind of where we got.
Thank you so much, Claude. Short and sweet. Wonderful. Enjoying everyone responding in the chat. And then now, last but not least, group number 10 is going to speak on environmental justice, divestment from fossil fuels, with the goal of getting universities to divest from fossil fuel companies. Who from group 9? Yep.
That would be me. So we did a spectrum of allies, and for active opponents, we said the fossil fuel companies and other probably the investors and the people who are actively in the industry. Passive opponents, maybe other investors, so maybe people who have bought stock from companies or something like that, so they're not active in the business, but they're benefiting from it. From neutrals, maybe like individuals that are just unaware of the situation, so they don't know and therefore they don't take a position. Then for passive allies, we said students and other people who might agree with the issue, but they don't have the time for some reason, they don't have the means to be actively doing the activism against it. And active allies, just the students who are activists and other environmental activists.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. This is exciting. Looking at the stuff in the chat box. This is great. I'm so excited and proud of everybody. Yes. So can we go back to the slideshow screen share, because we now have about, less than 10 minutes, like 6 minutes, so 7 minutes. So we're going to go back to the mommy slide number 62, because what we're going to do, a couple of parting activities to bring us to some closure as a ritual. I want you to each take a moment to think of a way to complete this prompt. I can change. And put it in the chat box, because we're going to make a group poem that we're also going to send to everyone. In the interest of also respecting everyone's individuality, you don't necessarily have to stick to the format of I can change, fill in the blank, but something that remains in the spirit of that. And one sentence, one line that comes from your heart and soul and mind. We're going to give you a minute to do that. Yes. Look at this all rolling in. I love it. Yes, 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 yes. I can change my actions. I can change the world. I can change myself. I can change with the gifts I was given. I can change my approach to activism. I can change who I consider my allies in opposition when organizing. I can change the norm. I can change what I fund. I can change and increase my level of involvement. Woo! All this change happening. I can change my outlook. Yes, I can change my outlook. Wow, stereo thinking happening in real time. I can change my actions. I can dismantle white supremacy. You're not going to do that alone, but yes, we can. I can change negativity into something positive. I can change the broadness of my perspective. Come on, take the blinders off. I can change how I spend my time and my money. I can change my perspective. More stereo thinking. I can change the ways I participate in activism. That's right, introverts got superpower. I can change the status quo, because if you don't change the status quo, you are the status quo. I can change those that disagree with me and that of my community. I can change the way I love, the way I invest my time. I can change my knowledge and participation to make them greater. Perspective, mindset, world, attitude. I can change how I organize. Disoriented perception of Black women. Come on now. I can change what I call success. That's right. I can work to dismantle white supremacy and capitalism. I can change the way I organize and dream. Change negativity, how I spend my money and resources. I can change my life. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody sing it with me now. Say, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, oh, yeah. I said, oh, yeah. Yeah. Come on down. We did it. Okay, we got like 4.5 minutes left. Next slide. Now, Monica, you want to take that?
Yeah. Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for that. And I hope we can keep this chat so we can have those poems saved. Okay, so now we'll just take a moment. You should be able to write into this document again in the presentation. So all these little sticky notes, just to think about. In some ways, I like to think about this as like, what's something you're taking away that's something new that you learned? What's something that you're taking away or that you'll remember that something you felt from it, something that impacted you emotionally, or something, what's an action step that you're going to take away, that you're going to bring into your life and into your activism, into your communities. And so take a moment and put it, if you don't want to put it on the, if it's hard to get back into the document and put it in the sticky notes, you can put it in the chat too.
I just made a duplicate of the first slide. So, because I know we got only so many squares. So slide number 63 and 64. You can also copy and paste a blank one if you know how to do that. Yes, Monica, because we're recording, not only will the chat be recorded, but I'm also downloading because, you know, when you can't be in the streets, the movement needs spreadsheets and chat threads. I can say what I'm taking away from this session is that I think that we are all invigorated by each other's energy, and that the intersectionality is also intergenerational. I'm Generation X. This year is my 30-year high school reunion, and yet I'm being inspired by people who just graduated high school. And since I also just said Gen X, shout out to DMX, rest in power. Yeah. Wow, Gen X in the house, right? So that's my takeaway. Monica, what about you?
I'm just seeing what people are writing in here, different ways to participate, changing organizing efforts to make sure it's inclusive, yeah, meaningful, substantial, different ways to organize, make my activism daily. Yes, activism is a daily practice.
Yes, it is.
Manifest in many different ways. Yeah, find your way, really. I mean, I know you're coming into university in a time which is, you know, a really strange, weird, wild, scary time. And so I hope that you can find some value in these tools and what we've laid out today. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And so use your gifts, use your knowledge, use your community, start with what's meaningful to you, and then go from there. And just continue to follow what resonates with you and what impacts you directly and those around you. And let's go to the last slide.
Let's see, 65, slide number 65.
We're gonna send, you can follow Beautiful Trouble and Instagram, Facebook. We've got a website there. We can send out links to this presentation as well, so you can have that. The next slide, please. There's also books that we have, Beautiful Trouble, Beautiful Rising, and I think that you have you can get a discount to that too. So there it is right there, the discount code. So that's there, and you can use that if you want to get these books or these slide deck cards. They're really helpful tools. I go back to them a lot, and you can use that.
The deck is really fun, and if you go on Vimeo, there's a video of me singing karaoke style the deck when it was launched. We are at time.
Yep.
We did it. You did it.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, everyone. Dragonfly and I are really honored that you chose to spend your time with us today. I always find it a real privilege to be able to share some knowledge and skills. I hope it was helpful for you. If there's even one thing that was, then I hope it was worth it. And thank you so much for being with us.
Yes.
Dragonfly and Monica, thank you. Thank you. This was fabulous. And I can't wait till we can do it in person.
Thank you, Project Pericles, for having us. Thanks for D4D and for all the tech staff for doing this with us today. And
absolutely.
Facilitator Dragonfly.
Thank you. If you could all go off mute and maybe even on video and just wave before you say goodbye, that would be great to just say bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Look, we all waited. So thank you. It was really spectacular. And I have been on a lot of Zoom calls, meetings, etc., with large professional groups. And there has never been one with no technical glitch. There was no technical glitch. You all are absolutely amazing. And my group was small but spectacular. And this is so far beyond what I could have ever hoped for. I can't wait for Nadine to hear what she missed.
Big shout out to mommy too for holding it down technologically. Yes, because you were multitasking. You were like in the group and doing the tech. Come on now. That's right.
Thank you. And Ashley,
No,
thank you for
mine-
doing breakout groups. I can't believe we get to spend more time with you all in the summer.
They just started. They have been here less than a month and very few hours each week, and we've never met them in person. So thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We felt very supported.
Have a great rest of the day and tomorrow too.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Monica. Bye, Dragonfly. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
All right.
Okay.